what happened with Josh Jacobs. My colleague, Tom Pelissero, said that he was sitting in a car outside the facility with Max Crosby, thinking this was going to get done so he could go right to work, and that didn't happen. Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that the effort was really made. You know, they made a very strong effort, and you know, I know the Raiders have tried to be as communicative as possible with Jacobs, and yeah, I mean, I just think that's another one where, you know, my sense would be that the guarantees in the third year are part of the problem. You know, the average per year, I think you can kind of work through that stuff. But guaranteeing players money into a third year, especially at that position, especially where, you know, in the case of Saquon, you'd be talking about his 8th year in the league. The case of Josh, you'd be talking about his 7th year in the league. Yeah, I don't think that one got like contentious in the room, you know, between the Raiders and Josh Jacobs people. But obviously, like, you know, I think you had like Tom said, you know, I didn't have the detail on him being in the car, but I know he was at the facility yesterday. I think Josh Jacobs was motivated to get something done. You know, and this is another one. I do think like one of the similarities here, and these are not the same, you know, but one of the similarities here is that, like, just like, you know, Saquon meant a lot for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane in year one in New York. Josh Jacobs obviously meant a lot and shouldered a heavy load in year one for Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler in Vegas. And so, you know, it's interesting because I just think like a lot of us do focus on the average per year, and I understand it's an easy number to go off of, but guarantees are always important. And I think at this position in particular, you know, going to that third year for a running back can be a tough pill to swallow for a team. Whereas for a player, he obviously wants to protect against the chance that there's a downturn, which makes him motivated to really push on that third year.
I don't get it. I honestly don't. I mean, you're sitting here saying third year, and I know you point out, you know, Joe Shane's from Buffalo, where they didn't pay guys, and then, you know, McDaniels is from New England, where, you know, they won a Super Bowl with Sony Michel, LeGarrette Blount, Jonas Gray, Antoine Smith, so on and so forth. But,
I know.
But hold on a second. I'm not done with it. But their current quarterback, you know, Josh Allen's not walking through that door in New Jersey, and Tom Brady, you know, I think I'm confident in saying it's not walking through that door in Las Vegas.
I guess you never say never. Right?
You know, well, not as a player, he's not walking through that door, right? But so that's the point. I mean, we just had Marshall Faulk who called in hour one and saying this is all because of the way that they pay quarterbacks and push up guys like Daniel Jones and Jimmy Garoppolo, who I am lumping together because they're not in the Burrow and the Mahomes and Allen class, Rodgers class. They're not in them in terms of decoration and widely held belief amongst folks like us to have that same success. So, you know, how in the world is Saquon not as valuable, like for a third year to make happy in year 1 and 2, you know, as you're trying to win now? I don't get. I don't understand it. I don't.
Yeah, I would say, well, there are a couple things. Like, number one, I think it's how, like, teams view this position as replaceable. And it's really, really hard to replace a quarterback, right? It's really hard to replace a top corner. It's really hard to replace a number one receiver. It's hard to replace a top left tackle. You know, like, I mean, look at the two teams in the Super Bowl, right? The Chiefs had a 7th-round rookie in Isaiah Pacheco at running back. The Eagles had a guy in Miles Sanders who's on a rookie contract who they let walk, even though he only got $6 million a year from another team. So those are the two teams that were in the Super Bowl. You know, I also think the franchise tag, you know, hurts these guys because it's such an affordable thing for these teams, so they have that to fall back on. You know, and it's like, okay, well, if we don't want to give this guy guarantees into the third year when we think he might be done, well, you know, he's going to show up anyway in week 1. And it's cold, it's callous, but it's probably true. You know, I mean, that these guys are going to show up. And then I think the third thing is, you know, teams. You know how I hate to use the cliche that it's a copycat league, but you know, like, I mean, with what the Rams did, you know, like, there's this focus on premium positions, and if you look at like the Rams, right, for example, like, because they've been sort of a model now. You know, there was a point there where, you know, Sean McVay and Les Snead, those guys moved away from paying running backs like Todd Gurley and off-ball linebackers like Alec Ogletree, and they went all in on premium positions. They paid Aaron Donald, they paid Cooper Kupp, they paid Jalen Ramsey, they paid Andrew Whitworth, they paid Matthew Stafford, right? And so, like, I think if you look at it, and this is an amazing thing, and I had this in Twitter earlier today. If you look at it, there are 56 players across the NFL that are paid $20 million a year or more. 17 of them are quarterbacks, 13 of them are wide receivers, 9 of them are interior D linemen, 7 of them are edge rushers, 5 of them are offensive tackles. So 51 of the 56 play 5 positions, So it's just sort of where the league's going. That's the other part of it. So, and look, like I would argue, I think the argument against that is sound too, which the argument against that is, well, like these guys are mean a lot to their teams, and their offenses are built around them, which makes them different. And if you look at guys the teams have paid on the whole, they haven't regretted those contracts. The guys who are truly, the kind of guy you build your offense around. The Titans don't regret paying Derrick Henry. The Browns don't regret paying Nick Chubb. I think even like the Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott, the Vikings and Dalvin Cook, it didn't work out at the end, but I don't think they would say that was money poorly spent based on what those guys meant to those teams.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.